So welcome everyone. You probably all know the format that I use for the coaching class. I usually have a slideshow and I go through our topic and then I take some questions towards the end. But today we are just going to be doing questions and answers. So I didn't get any questions. Nobody DM me anything, so I don't have anything that is there. So the best thing is we will just go around. If you have questions, just unmute yourself. Tell me the situation where you are, what you're doing. If there is a roadblock, mention that roadblock because that's what the purpose is of this call. Sometimes what happens is if you don't think it through, you talk about a lot of other things, but you don't talk about the actual roadblock. So hopefully these sessions are going to be helpful if we can identify what the problem is. And for a lot of newbies, sometimes it's very simple. And the idea that we can focus on that problem that can get you going. So I'm happy to tell you at least there are at least two or three members from this coaching calls have bought their first property. And so hopefully I will get them on the call and we'll get their experience from that. And mostly it's just a matter of getting sure about what they're doing. A lot of time is that hesitation that you have, right? So we want you to overcome that. And anything I can do to help you, I'm here. So who has a win? Who like to share something?
Amir, can you hear me?
I can. Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess for me, I have not bought my first SlowFlip. Recently joined the Freedom Accelerator. I'm very antsy and excited to make my first purchase, but I have a lot of fear that I want the first one to go right. So I feel like I'm fighting a little bit of paralysis by analysis. I have not chosen a market yet. Um, I'm just being very conservative with the first one. So I guess I don't. I've been joining your calls. It's been helpful, but I haven't even picked the market yet. So any, I guess, general tips for uh, just kind of pulling the trigger on the first
Well,
one with where I'm at.
absolutely. No, thank you for sharing that. This is exactly the right call for this. And if you don't mind, we'll talk about all the things that are holding you back. Okay, choosing a market is just one thing. But number one, let me just ask you a few questions. Number one, have you gone through the entire coaching? Have you done with all the modules?
No, I have not. I'm still working through the modules.
So my suggestion is just go through the modules because what happens is the way the training is, it has a lot of content and a lot of things that Scott does. Some of the things, for example, when I was going through the training, I knew that I could not use or I was not planning to use, and I'll tell you why. There is a big section about direct marketing, printing postcards, bandit sign, and all that. I'm familiar with all of that, and that is great for someone who is in a market where slow flips work, right? Or if you have a team and you are doing all of this remotely. My goal from the very beginning, I'm in Texas, by the way. So my goal from the beginning was to never buy in Texas. I wasn't planning on buying anything in Texas. So I was going to do this remotely, right? So if I was going to do this remotely, I was not planning on doing any bandit signs. So in my mind, that part of the training was something that either I could skip. I went through everything anyway. I'm telling you all of this because what it is that first you got to decide what is your comfort zone, what is that you're planning to do, what you think you can do. Second, the training is very important, whether it applies to you or don't apply to you. If you do everything in the training, it will give you something like a context. Once you have context, then when you go to come to my calls or you go to Scott's calls, you will start understanding what some of these people are talking about. Otherwise, you don't have a context. You are still missing a lot of pieces. And when somebody talks about something, for example, you're talking about, choosing a market, but maybe there's something in the training. Now, I don't remember offhand, and which part of the training talks about what specific section. Maybe Tom has some idea on that. But if you don't finish the training, you will not have the full context. So my suggestion is first, just do your best, do as fast as you can. Your primary focus should be to complete the training. And by the way, the training does not mean you have to do the previous recordings. I don't think that's, I mean, it's good to watch them, they're great. But the core modules where Scott talks about the principles and resources and all of those things, you need to be definitely be doing those first. So I would just spend on that. Trust me, once you do that, then choosing a market and all these things will become a lot easier.
Very good. Thank you.
Sure. But I'll be happy to give you some tips right now. But like I'm saying, what I tell you right now, you still won't have the right context. And if I tell you something, it might confuse you or it might just make you go in another direction. But I'll still talk about it. So at least you have a reference. But once you complete the training, a couple of things will happen. Number one, where are you based, Matt?
I'm in Iowa.
Iowa. Okay. You're definitely not trying to buy anything in your market, right?
That's correct.
Right. Okay, so you're going to be like me, basically buying remotely in markets that where our community is buying, right?
Yeah, and I've been looking at like the St. Louis or Peoria area. That's kind of where I've
Right.
been leaning towards.
Right. Approximate population of St. Louis, Missouri.
I'm guessing maybe 400,000. I don't know.
Yep. Yep. Actually, that's very close. It's and so it's not a major city, but it's considered a big city for where our group is active. For example, Cahokia, Illinois, right? Guess what the population of Cahokia, Illinois is? You can Google it right now.
It's 11, 12,000. Yeah,
Okay.
12,000.
So I want you to this is very interesting. If you go on our forum and you look at the number of properties that are being sold, there are surprisingly large amount of properties. I mean, I'm talking about ratios, okay? What is the size of the inventory in St. Louis market, right? And then make a guess of what the size of the inventory. When I say inventory, I'm talking about homes, right? What is the size of homes in Cahokia? If only 15,000 people live there, how many homes do you think are there? So what that tells
2.3 people per home.
That's what I'm trying to tell you is, isn't that amazing? And I'm finding, and this is something I do personally, right? When there is this amazing property that is listed on by somebody in our community wholesaling, and it's in this town, really in a small suburb somewhere, and there was somebody who posted a property, and I'm not kidding, okay? When I looked up that city, they were in the entire city, there were like 150 people. You know, my block here where I live, there are 500 houses in my block, in my subdivision. And I'm like, how are you even doing numbers? It doesn't, so the thing what I'm trying to tell you is first understand the context. Understand what the market sizes are. If you're going to decide on going in a market, understand what are you buying? What is the size of the market, right? And if you're buying a home in there, what are the chances if there is a vacancy, how long would you have to wait to fill that vacancy? Now that's on a broad level. Then there are other issues. Sometimes some markets are in greater. By the way, something interesting Scott said today, yesterday's call. I saw a recording of it. Somebody asked this question because you're asking this question, Matt, is about that thinking about the market. He was just kind of stuck with, well, I wonder what the crime rate is. I don't know if the market is increasing or decreasing. You know what Scott said? Scott says most of the homes where we are buying, most likely the crime rate is high, and most of these markets, the market is declining. Well, that's the reason why we are able to buy homes at such deep discount because there are less and less people wanting to live in these areas because there's no new constructions, there's no rehabs going on, right? Because of other reasons. So understand the context. That's why I'm saying all of these things are actually in the course. So when you finish the course, then you actually understand the context, and then it becomes a little bit easy to decide on going in the markets.
If I can piggyback, I'm
Sure,
all
Amy, go ahead.
sure. Hi, I'm also very new. I just joined this weekend after many months of
Oh,
research
welcome.
and thank you, research and reading Scott's book, and actually realized that I had started some of the things that he had mentioned in the book. But anyway, long story short is, I have a ton of questions. I'm sure you guys have all seen me on the board, like just asking question after question. That's kind of what I do. But I am realizing, like, as I go through the modules, that a lot of my questions are getting answered.
Yep.
And, maybe not in the greatest context of the big picture, but, enough where it's like, oh, okay, I'm starting to understand how that works. So yeah, the information is definitely in there. I just finished the first module last night. Also, something that's been really helpful for me is I started out with two, I'm in Chicago, so I'm not super far from Peoria, Decatur, also not super far from St. Louis. Indiana's close, Ohio's close, but my two main, in my head were all right, I'm gonna go for this Decatur, Illinois and St. Louis region. But now that I've been in it a little bit more, I'm also looking in Indiana, which is some areas of Indiana are super close to me, even closer than Peoria or whatever, and Ohio. And so what I've been doing is I've been going on Willow and just kind of looking in all these areas, and that does also help you get an idea of the market. I'm realizing in Peoria there's actually a lot of really nice homes for $30,000, to the point where I'm like, are these, are Peoria homes even worth much more than that? And then I was doing some research saying, yeah, they are. There's definitely more expensive homes than that around there, but there are a lot of them in that area for 30 that are not in the worst condition, like a normal house. I kind of start to feel like, what's going on here? Is this kind of the normal rate for a home in this area? So I think that really kind of diving into Zillow and looking into, I just look in the whole state. And that's part of I think what Scott talks about with the ghost ads is oh, okay, you found this amazing home in in the middle of nowhere, Ohio. Awesome, but is it going to be marketable? Is someone going to want to rent in that area? So it kind of, I feel like that research, going on Zillow and just looking at homes and doing that legwork, really kind of can help you pinpoint not only your target market, but also kind of can let you see how everything out there is not necessarily an option, even if it is a really cheap, nice home too.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you, Amy.
Mm-hmm.
So again, yeah, right now just put all your attention in completing the course. All the modules, just complete them as soon as you can, and as soon as that happens, then maybe you'll be more confused. That's okay. Don't worry about it. At least now you know that actually you have all the context because you've gone through all the course. Because the last thing you want to do is ask a question and somebody on the forum says, well, it's in the course, go ahead and check it. They're probably going to answer your question as well, but you might as well discover it yourself. Yes, Kevin, go ahead.
Hey, Amir, thank you for doing this for us. This is really great. Brand new, a couple weeks. Major was the one that turned me on to these calls, and it's awesome that you're doing this. So thank you for your time. I checked out your website, and definitely somebody I'd like to duplicate. So I'm new to real estate in general, so I apologize to anybody on here that's already into this. And the only experience I have is purchasing two homes that I resided in with my family in the past. So my question is very generic, kind of. It's probably going to lead to a follow-up question from you, depending on your answer. But it's really what's stuck in my brain is because I don't know the process. I finished all the modules, just so you know, and I just started the clone my business, which I'm waiting for the next thing to unlock. So I think I'm far enough into that, and I've every one of them. But my question is, so we find a house. We find a house that we think is a great slow flip house. Um, do I already have the money secured before I offer, or do I offer to Mrs. Jones, make the offer, and then secure the money? That's my first question.
Absolutely. That's a great question. And in fact, that is a question a lot of people have, even with experience in real estate, because they may not know exactly how flips work. So, number one, uh, while you don't actually need to have the funds in your account, obviously, if you have them, first you have to decide, are you going to self-fund the first deal? Just focus on the first deal. Are you going to self-fund the first deal, which means you're going to come up with the funds from your own pocket? Or you're going to find a lender to do that for you. You're going to find someone who's going to, you're going to borrow money from them, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know the answer, then what's going to happen is you will also be not sure about it. So when you talk and when you send in your offer, your language, everything will show that you're not confident in what you're doing. So you have to be absolutely clear about that part. So you can tell me right now, what is your plan? Just forget about others. For the first one, what is your plan?
To find a lender.
Okay, so you're going to find a lender. So what you need to do is there's in private lending we call something called a soft commit. And that soft commit means is having a discussion with someone and telling them what you're doing and getting them to say, yes, I'm interested. I think this is something I could do. That is not a hard commit. So the difference is a hard commit is when somebody actually tells you have the money, they have the money, sitting in the account, and they've actually committed on a timeline to say, yes, I'll be able to fund it in 2 weeks. That's a hard commit. Okay, so I worked with a lot of private lenders. So all my private lenders have hard committed with me. So which means I know how much money they actually have in their account and how much they're committing on a ongoing basis. So for you, minimum you need to at least start these discussions, and you're probably looking at in the courses you've also gone through that. Scott talks about it. In fact, I'm not going to name him right now, but there's this one guy in our group who is doing amazingly well. And I have a feeling that he doesn't have any prior real estate experience, but he's doing amazingly well. And one of the things he recently told me is what Scott talks about is that you need to be talking about what you do to anyone that you meet. That's like, anybody, when a conversation opens, you never know. Everybody has money sitting somewhere. Okay, don't judge them. So what that will do for you, if you even, let's say your soft commit doesn't come through, that wouldn't matter. What matters would be that somebody has actually, you've opened up the door and somebody's had this discussion with you and they've given you a soft commit. That will be good enough for you to have confidence enough to start putting in your offers. This is what my opinion is, because what's going to happen is this private lender thing, if you don't start working on it early enough, there's going to be a little gap, and that gap might just kill your, excitement about getting going. And because I'm telling you, my story is I self-funded my first deal, and after that, there was a gap of 6 months. Because for 6 months I couldn't do anything. And then after 6 months I had the breakthrough, and then I had lenders. But for that 6 months, I started doubting that, oh, I don't know, because in this system, it's based on private lenders. If you don't have private lenders, nothing will happen. So for you, just start those conversations.
Okay. Now that's let's say I have a soft commit. That obviously means I don't have an address, even though I have a house or two that I really like. I don't have a specific address yet, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. Because you're not selling the idea of a home. You know how Scott does, by the way?
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
I even don't work the way Scott does. Scott is just in, a different level. His private lenders, he just tells them, hey, let me know when you have money and I'll get you a house. So the house is not what you're really doing, right?
Right.
What you're doing is your value proposition is you do this analysis, and you have a system that you know what you're doing, and you're just going to give them a 12% return on their investment passively. So it's not their problem to figure out how to underwrite the property. It's not their problem to find what's going to happen to the. That's something you're doing. They just
Okay.
have to look at the property and just say, okay, the property exists. Okay, maybe you're going to give some, comps or something to them, but so that doesn't matter. What
Okay.
matters is how you present yourself.
Okay.
And
So
that confidence will come because you know in the back that you at least spoke to someone who's, gave you some indication. You know what I'm saying? So it's like a step-by-step thing. So
sure.
try that.
Okay. And sorry, I'm just got one more part
No,
of
no,
this.
go ahead. Go ahead. Absolutely. We have lots of time.
That's of it. So I got a soft commit, yes. Now I make my official offer. And once you make an offer to, let's just say Mrs. Jones is selling that house and
Uh-huh.
she accepts the offer,
Yeah.
is there a down payment that they expect? What's keep in general real estate? Like, why does she have to believe that I'm serious about it? Is she going to want a down payment at that point? Something until the closing? Like,
Yeah, no, in what you will require is something called a earnest money. It's called earnest money deposit. And that's usually I put 500. I never put more than $500. You can put
okay,
that money from your pocket, so
yeah,
that shouldn't be a problem, right? So here's the process. Actually, I did a presentation. I'm trying to remember. There's no recording of that, but I did a presentation. I'll do another one later on, so we'll have a recording of that. I can tell you the process. So number one, you're actually thinking of an offer as a one-time kind of event. It's not like that, okay? It's going to be a whole bunch of offers, and out of that, one will come through, okay? So offers is something that you will have to just, that's the template I use when I either email or text offer to the real estate agent if the property is listed on the MLS. I can just go through the process for you really quickly, okay? I buy only two or three different ways. I buy properties right off the MLS, okay,
hmm
which means there's a real estate agent involved, everybody. Um, Believe it or not, I think for me, I found that that's one of the safest and best ways to ensure that you are getting a property with proper disclosures. Because by law, the agents are required to disclose anything that is wrong with the property, and the seller have to actually sign something. It's called a seller disclosure form, and they have to sign off by saying that yes, I'm aware that there's a problem with the property and so on and so forth. So if you are going to place offers by finding properties on the MLS and placing offers, the offer has to be in writing and it has to be in a contract, but you don't have to do that. What I do, the process I use, and it works all the time, is you reach out to the listing agent. So the listing agent is representing the seller. So if you do it right, and I shared that template before, if you do it right, they will actually take you seriously, and they will, on your behalf, put the offer together on a contract and have you sign it. The earnest money is not actually required until the offer is accepted. So the day the offer is accepted, I think within 3 days you have to deposit the earnest money. And within that also, again, I did a whole call on that. Is when you sign the contract and it's accepted, there is a 3-day inspection period, and that is the time when you finalize everything. You do your inspection, you do your due diligence. Until that time, you can actually get a refund of that earnest money if you think you made a mistake. Does that make sense? So that
yeah,
is the beginning part of the process. So I would not worry about it. It's like somebody should just throw you in the pool and then you'll figure out the things. Trust me, it's not any more complicated than that. And then the worst thing, the very worst thing that can happen is that you lose your earnest money. But like I
right.
said, you'll have full 3 days to figure that out. And if you don't think things are working towards where it needs to be, you can always exit from the contract by saying, you know what, for whatever XYZ reason, this is not the right property for me, and you'll get your earnest money back. So that's why you need to be putting a lot of offers, because you
Yeah,
will find something ultimately from that. So don't think of offer as an event or one thing. It's a whole bunch of offers, and then one will come out from there.
makes sense. Thank you so much. Yeah, you just immensely helped me. I'll look forward to that text later for the template. And last thing I'll say before I know some other, I want to let everybody else get in here, but when I first went to your website, it was directed by Major. I filled out your questionnaire because I thought it was for you to be my private money lender. So just so you know,
Okay.
you got a submission from me, and I don't have any money. So
Yeah, it's okay. No worries. Yeah, I
thank
remember
you.
I did see one submission and I wasn't sure because most of the people who are completing the form, they have been invited or I know them personally. So that's no worries.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having me. Sure.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Hey, Tom.
I just want to caveat on what Kevin was saying, and you're a good person to discuss this. It's not just that 2 week timeline you have with the potential lender. If their money is tied up in a 401k, you've got to get them connected with Equity Trust or Amir's people so they can put that into a self-directed platform for lending to you. And that's going to be some time. Plus, they got a learning curve to get get that money out to you and trust the whole process in there too. So you got to make sure you're working that angle. And then I like off of some of what everybody else is talking about with the populations and stuff. You know, yes, St. Louis area has been a depressed population, and so those surrounding areas where, like he's talking about, Cahokia, Belleville, Granite City, they're finding great deals because the migration of the people are moving there, but they're still within vicinity of their jobs. So it's not just like total population, but you might want to look at migration trends.
That's a good point. Thank you, Tom. That's awesome. Yeah. So talking about the retirement accounts. So let's say you come across someone and he says, well, this sounds incredible, but he will always have a but. But my money is stuck. They use this word. My money is stuck in my old 401k or whatever, and I don't even have access to it. And they'll use the words like, I don't know what to do with it. So guess what? Your value, that's how you commit. You get somebody from soft commitment to hard commitment is to help them.
Directed
Okay.
IRA.
So you're helping them by showing them a solution of moving their retirement account into self-directed account so that they can lend to you and then earn 12%. So you're doing them a favor. Do you see that? So just be open to that. So Tom, that was excellent. Thank you. Amy, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just looking for some clarification on what like earnest money. What is that?
Yeah, so basically what it means is that you are earnest in putting your offer on this property. And in some areas where you're dealing with higher dollar amount, the earnest money could be in thousands and thousands of dollars. Sometimes I know in general real estate, when you're buying a home of $200,000-300,000, it could be 1% or 1.5%. So in that scenario, people are putting up substantial like $3, $4, $5,000 as earnest money. In commercial properties, sometimes the earnest money could be $60,000, $70,000, and that shows your seriousness in pursuing. Because otherwise, a lot of people could put properties under contracts with no intentions of doing anything with them. So that's their way of saying that okay, you are serious.
So it's kind of like a down payment in a way.
It's not down payment, it's just transactional thing, just saying that I'm serious, here's his $500 or $1,000, and that gets everybody interested by saying okay, he's at least able to do that, rather than saying, well, I'm not going to put any earnest money down. In fact, if you ever say that, uh, people will get suspicious. They will not take you seriously at all. What I'm just telling you is that the amount is usually negotiable. Okay, so the agents usually put like $1,000 in it or a large amount because they're looking for their benefit for their seller, right? But in the industry, generally, if $500 is a standard, so you can put $500 and they will not have a problem with that. So if they put $1,000 or $2,000, you can change that or request them to change that to $500. But yes, you do have to put something up.
Okay. And now, like, if you're using a lender, would that could it be out of your pocket, or should it be out of your pocket, or should it be coming out of the lender's pocket? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so either or. The problem is, think about it. You're asking your lender to lend you $30,000, and suddenly you're asking them for $500.
No, totally. I mean, I have my own money to start, but I was just kind of curious to like
Yeah.
where you
You,
lender, where does
usually
that?
what happens. sorry, usually what happens is at closing, those funds will be credited to you.
Okay.
Right? So let's say you bought a property for $30,000 and let's say you have cash. So at closing, you will not need, let's assume you don't have any other expenses. At closing, they will say 30,000 minus 500.
Sure.
So you'll need that much money to come to the table. So they will credit you the account. Yes.
Cool. Thank you for clarifying.
Sure. Any other question?
Amir, how do you word it to have your contingency to get out for any reason? Like you said, you'll make an offer and you'll put a three-day contingency in there.
Yeah, and so that's what contingency means, is that you're doing an inspection, you're checking out things, and it could be anything. So the contingency period is called an inspection period, and you're doing your inspection and you want to, it's called due diligence, and it could be any reason, and you don't really have to give any reason. The problem is after the contingency period ends and you're trying to get out of the contract, that is tricky because that's when you need a good reason. So in that case, there is something called it doesn't apply to SlowFlips. So let me back up and by explaining. When you're doing a regular transaction, which means let's say people buying homes, regular homes, which are don't require work, so they're not bought on cash. So the homes that are bought on cash are a different animal. You see what I'm saying? So when you're buying a regular home, in that case, there is something called a contingency of financing. So you could actually say that my offer is contingent upon me getting financing for this property, right? But this is not what we are doing. We are buying for cash. We are actually telling them, hey, we are buying cash. That's why we're getting a discount. That's why these properties are listed like that. That's why they need repairs. So you cannot put contingency about financing because that will defeat the whole purpose. So you cannot use that reason. So that 3-day inspection period could be anything. You don't even have to give a reason, as long as it's within that three-day period. There is a problem there though. Sometimes people ask for more than 3 days, like they might say 1 week, and I can tell you most cash sales are they want to sell them fast. So they are not going to usually agree to more than 3 days. They might do 4, 5 days for whatever reason. So that's why that period is usually short. 3 days is what is acceptable.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So anybody placing offers right now? I like to know what your experience is and what's happening on that side.
Hi, Mia.
Yeah, hi.
Okay, so my offer get accepted.
Oh, congratulations, Tam, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So actually we already closed on that property. That was
Wonderful. Congratulations. This is in Ohio, right?
yeah, Toledo.
Toledo? Wonderful.
Yep.
I have 2 properties in Toledo. But I can tell you on that premise, if you work with any good agent, they would love to do that for you anyway, without having you sign that exclusive contract. So here's Tam, trust me, this is the literally you can write it down. This is the verbiage you can use with them. Tell them, thank you very much. I love to work with you. However, I'm an investor. I work in different states and in different cities across the state. And I work with a lot of different agents and investors and wholesalers. So that's why I cannot sign an exclusivity contract or an agreement.